Hello and welcome to another Retro Crazy. Can you tell what it's going to be about? This is the Sinclair ZX81 and this is what started my love of computers. I owned one. I owned one back in the early 80s. Yes, I am that old. More importantly, this beaten up, bodged together thing is my original ZX81. With drilled holes and an LED and a weird power switch at the side, drilled holes in the bottom. I'll explain what some of these were for later. Missing all its rubber pads. I can see it's missing, yeah, pretty much most of the screws. And I still have my original power supply, and somewhere I also have my original 16K RAM pack. I do have another one. This is not my original. I picked this one up recently. But a whopping 1K up to 16K with the introduction of the 16K RAM pack. So the ZX81 itself was launched in 1981 by Sinclair Research. Let me move this out of the way. And it was actually manufactured here in Scotland by Timex in Dundee. So, hey, I actually have a Scottish built computer. And the ZX81 has just had its 40th anniversary. So, trusty little machine, well done, happy birthday, or happy anniversary. The machine itself was designed, the keyboard and case, by a guy called Rick Dickinson, and he ended up getting design awards for this, and it's very iconic. This is the next version on from the ZX80, which is a white case, and it's all sort of injection molded and looks totally different than this, but the form factor, you know, kind of similar. This was sold as a kit, or you could get it pre-built, so you had the choice. Mine came pre-built. My parents bought me it. This is another one I do actually have, so I'll be doing both of these, the same restoration on both of these during this video. And the key thing about this is it was designed to be cheap and cost effective, and by cheap I mean genuinely about 4 ICs, that was it. And that was all done to cut down costs. Keep it cheap, keep it simple. So it basically had the Z80 microprocessor, an uncommitted logic array known as a ULA. I missed one, or is it just refusing to come out? I think it's just refusing to come out due to its age. Oh my goodness. It has been a long time. That screw, even though it's just burling in its hole, I think is still biting enough. It had one ROM and normally one 4418 memory module, but some of them had two 144s. But it was what I used to term the thump sensitive keys. They were nothing more than a membrane with this on top. So you were actually pressing directly onto the membrane. Again, as I say, done very cheaply to a price point. Now, this works this way. It comes in, you take it off, the base comes off, and in case you're wondering, this is non-standard. Oh my god, I've even got something scratched on it. What does that say? I don't know, something page OK. These tended to get very hot. This is one of my bodged modifications from when I was not very old. I think this is a piece of copper pipe which has been hammered flat. I've drilled 2 holes and then there's added this on as a giant heatsink. As you see, I've got a power LED which I've taken a feed off down here by the looks of it, and I don't think I ever got round to finishing the power switch so that it actually had a proper on-off, because the thing with the ZX81 was there was no on-off at all. There are no switches or buttons or anything. You plug the power in and yeah, it was on. You wanted to switch it off, you pulled the plug. It was that basic. So let's see about popping this out and see what I did to this poor thing as a youth. Was I even a youth? That's the question. Okay. So I'll need to flip it over because the keyboard membranes on these tend to be very, very fragile. So you can see in there the membrane here. And I'm just going to gently pull these up because I don't want to damage these if I can get away with it. And yeah, that one failed. That one broke. That's the problem with these over time. They become brittle and they fail. So I will need to look at picking up a replacement and trying to get the broken one out of there. That's going to be harder because the broken end will be tucked in there. Oh dear goodness. Okay. So here's how I did my power LED. Yeah, some very old and crusty electrical tape. I think we can do better than that. Now I'm a bit older and wiser. Yep, one resistor, stepping down the voltage so I don't burn out the LED. Power switch coming over between these 2 points. Excellent. So I am in effect taking it off the 7805. So it looks like I did disable the 7805. Yeah, I think we can tidy all this up. So here's my high quality bodging as a young child. Yeah, I'm kind of looking at it and screaming myself. So here we go. 780A CPU, the ULA made by Ferranti, 4118, and this is the ROM here. So this was a very basic system. You had no audio whatsoever. You had nothing more than, I mean, they do actually list it on the case what you get. You had a TV out, so you had a UHF modulator here, you had your earpiece, you had your microphone, and then your 9 volts in. That was it. Other than the edge connector, there was nothing else. So you got no sound, you just got this. And it ran off a standard tape deck, which was another adventure all on its own. Yeah, this brings back a lot of memories of a lot of time spent using this. But we're going to see what we can do. We've got some caps to replace here. I'll be replacing this 7805 because it's, well, let's face it, it's old. I may well replace this wiring. And I'm definitely going to need a new membrane, unfortunately. One side came out, the other side, yeah, just broke. And that's a bit more of a pain, but we'll see what we can do. Once we've done all that, Or before we even do all that, we're also going to be having a look at the power supply, because there's no way I'm putting voltage through this without knowing that the power supply is okay. We will be doing a little bit of modernisation because I do not think I'm going to be using the 7805, I'm going to be replacing it. Now, one of the problems with the 7805s, or the 78 series in general, was the heat generated. Hence the reason for this. But modern replacements are available that use the same packet size, as in layout, and I'm going to be using one of these. And this is TSR 1-2450, a TracoPower. First of all, the output tolerance is what, 2%? So yeah, the output is going to be really, really good, more stable than the 7805. The input voltage, well, that can go up to, I can't remember if it's 24 or 36 volts input before this, won't do its job, which allows for huge fluctuation in something like an old power supply. Great, but most importantly, I think it's about 93 or 96% power transfer rate. So this doesn't get hot, not to the extent that these do, which means all of this can go. I don't need this anymore. So I'm going to drop this in and replace these two. To be honest, that's pretty much all I'm going to be doing, other than cleaning up the edge connectors and tidying all this. This is just shameable. When you're young, huh? Right, so I'll pop these away initially, because the first thing I want to look at is the power supply. This is the original that you've seen. I do appear to have cut the mains cable quite short for some reason. Not an issue. I will simply fit a new plug onto this. We'll get this open and find out what's inside. The important bit is this end, and this end seems fine. So that's good. By comparison, I have a UK 1400, so a slightly different revision. This one has not had its mains cable cut. However, it looks like at some point I have decided I needed the connector for something, or it might not have been me. And the reason I say it might not have been me is the boxed one was given to me by a friend in excess of 20 years ago. It may have been done at that point, I don't know. The boxed one has not been butchered. No power switch. Neat, clean, still with its original feet. And this one will be getting done at the same time as my one. Again, I may need another membrane, but we'll find out shortly. So let's start with the one that is here, that's been cut short, and let's pop her open and see what's inside. An issue 2 ZX81 power supply with a whopping 6 components. We've got the main transformer, dropping it down from the 240 down to approximately 9 volts. One giant 4700 UF cap, and our diodes acting as a bridge rectifier. So I'm going to be replacing this. And there we are, recapped, done. However, you can see all these are nice and shiny, but when we get to the transformer, they're quite dark. I'm going to reflow all these. I'm going to take this solder off and replace it. Well, it's now in the wall and I can hear the transformer hum, so something's happening. Right, so nothing to start with. Let's find out. So we have an output, 14.61 volts, which is probably going to be about right before you've got a load on it. Right, one down, one to go. Unfortunately, I just don't have the other connector here at the moment, but I can do the rest of the testing. So 13 volts, again, absolutely fine and happy with that. Let me switch this off, and for safety, in case this gets plugged in by accident, I'm taking those flush so they can't touch. Right, that's 2 power supplies down, which is a good start, but not the end. And then that brings us on to the dreaded ZX81 Mushroom. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is remove this wiring. It's not that flexible. I will look at replacing all of this. But first of all, I want to get this running. Now that that's off, I'm going to take off this heatsink. And it should be just one screw and nut. Now I need to work on this, because while interesting, it is a bit of a mess. The joys of looking back at your old handiwork. I mean, come on, sellotape and electrical tape. Who in their right mind thought that was ever going to work? And oh dear God, okay, I'm actually looking down inside here. Yeah, can you see how bad I was back then? Let's pop this apart, and yeah, you can see my crimes against ZX humanity. Yeah, that is an absolute mess. I've kind of wrapped it round. I managed to get a bit of solder up here. I haven't. Oh, yeah, it's not nice. It's not nice. Which means this side's going to be as bad. Yay! That one, at least, was a little bit neater. But yeah, it's not the prettiest job. I've not used any wires. I've actually used the leg of the resistor and the leg of the LED for that connection. Wow, okay. Hey, I was brave back then. Apparently stupid as well. Well, let's start off by stripping off some of this and we'll take it from there. Now that that's all cleaned up, I can replace the capacitors, but if I'm going to do that, then I'll do this one at the same time. Straight away, I can see there's a tear on this flex connector, and yeah, they did a really good job of soldering that down. I'll maybe sort that, but yeah, that is going to need replaced as well. So both of these are ready for recapping now, and I'll do both of the 7805s, although this one is going to get an original 7805 new old stock back in, and this one is going to get the TracoPower replacement. This one I want to keep original. I'm not looking to do any changes or modifications. It's in really nice condition internally. This one, yeah, I've already hacked it apart. I'll do the upgrades. So last thing I'm going to do at the moment is I'm going to clean up these contact points, and to do that I'm going to use a glass fibre pen. So I'm recording this part of the video about a week later. I've been waiting for some parts to turn up, which are now here, courtesy of ZX Renew. Nicely made, 3M adhesives. I did note that obviously the printing, because I'm going to guess these are made in China, is slightly variable between them. I don't know if you can see the black on the New Line and Space buttons. I say buttons, the pads are slightly faded, but the red is perfect, and yet on this one, same buttons, the function is actually faded in the red, but the black's fine. That makes no odds at all. The cables appear to be good quality and they're reinforced all the way down, so they should last a little bit longer, hopefully. So let's see about getting these fitted. That's the keyboard membrane now down. So let's refit the actual main circuit board. Now, when it comes to testing, the ULA is the one thing that, if it's going to be dead, is probably the main thing that's dead. I'm hoping it's not, because these days they're quite rare and getting rarer. But fingers crossed, the ULA still works. And there we have it, the first of the two completed ZX81s. It's not in pristine condition, it's used, it's genuine, and fingers crossed, everything works. So let's pop this one to the side. We've got another one to look at. So one of the modifications I'd done was to have a power LED. Not a fan of that. So I'm going to change this design and we're going to make it a little bit nicer. I'm also going to change out this resistor. This, I believe, is a 470 ohm. It was lighting, but it was quite dim. I'm going to drop that down to a 220. So I'd taken a break for lunch and I was thinking about what I'd done with the LED, and I didn't like that, having it physically soldered and having to disconnect it each time, and yeah, didn't like that idea. And the more I didn't like that idea, the more I thought, and the more I thought, the more I realised I actually had something I could use to make life so much easier. So I've soldered on a number of pin headers, and by pin headers, I can literally plug that in. Try and plug that in. There we are, and that would go to the LED. Nice and simple and out of the way. It'll also allow me to do the power on the board the same way. So I'm going to pop this to the side. We'll finish up on this again, and we'll take it from there. So with those two pin headers in place, one for negative, one for positive, I've already repaired the damaged section of the trace where I had the switch originally. I've put in a fresh cut on a trace for the positive powering the TracoPower, and I've also put a cut in and tinned a point ready to put a patch point in. So these are going to be the returns coming back from the switch, which I've got to connect in here. Now I'm going to grab a couple of cables and then we can patch this up. So just to confirm, we've got the negative coming up to the LED. We've got a jumper off the positive, which comes up to the core of the switch. When on, it trips over to both sides of the switch. One side feeds the LED, the other side comes back, feeds the trace running along the back of the board, and the other one comes up and feeds the Traco. So again, assuming that the ULA is fine, fingers crossed, and there's nothing else wrong, this is now ready for assembly. What's holding the motherboard off are these two pin headers. So what I'm going to have to do is just bend them so that the cabling comes in from this lower edge. Well, here we go for testing. First one we're doing is the one with the power switch. So we have power. No, we don't. That's because I haven't switched the power on at the wall. Let's try that again. So power, nice bright green LED. Let's see if we can tune anything in. So we seem to have picked something up, and there we go. We have a cursor and we have a keyboard. Yeah, welcome to the wonderful world of RF outputs and modern tellies. However, everything seems to be doing what it's supposed to, so I'm quite happy about that. Excellent. So that is working exactly as it should. I have a power indicator light and I have an on-off switch, something that my younger self would have killed for. Let's move over to the second of the two. Okay, nothing found there. Power is quite loose. I'm just going to have a quick check of that to see. Okay, so the power socket felt quite loose. I've tensioned it up and I now get a good contact. So let's plug this in and see what happens. There we go, it's picked something up. So let's cancel out of this again. And obviously without a keyboard, nothing I can do here. But again, one working ZX81. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next Retro Crazy.